What's up, guys and ladies? How you doing? Alright, so let's talk about the highly anticipated game called Destiny. And I had the pleasure of playing this game, well, the alpha, last week. Thank you, Activision, for the code. And my first impression was that it's kind of like Halo and Borderlands had a baby. A very beautiful baby at that. So if you like both of those games, you're probably going to love this one too. Probably a little bit more, because I gotta say, this one looks a lot better than both of those combined. But there were some things that I really didn't care for, or things that I thought they could have changed to make it a lot better. But hey, I mean, every game does turn out that way, right? You take the good with the bad. So guys, don't get me wrong, no matter what I say, I might mention some things that are negative about the game, but they're just things I wish were a little bit different. But overall, that doesn't mean that it's a bad game at all. I think it's going to be a great game without a doubt. Possibly the best game coming out in the next year or two, and I'm definitely going to pick it up no matter what. So even though I will mention some things that I wish were different, it doesn't mean that I don't like it, okay? And remember that these are just some of my opinions too, so some of the things that I don't like, maybe you guys will, because other people will have different preferences in their games, you know what I mean? So, for instance, like one of the things that I really loved about this game was how the minimap disappears when you aim down your sight. I think that just makes it a little bit more balanced. It gives that slight disadvantage to the type of players that would just sit around all game ADSing at like usually a specific spot waiting for people to just show up. You know, I'm talking about camping. So yeah, this just leaves them just a little bit more vulnerable to be flanked. And I think that's a good thing, and it's going to be a little bit more fair. But for some people that like to play like that, they probably won't like this as much, you know what I mean? And I also do have to say that I love the melee system in this game. When you melee someone, you don't necessarily get that kill. What it does is, it takes half their life away. So, it'll only kill them if they're below half health, so you gotta shoot them a couple times first, or something like that. So, for us Call of Duty players that hate getting panic knifed, this is awesome. I actually love this, because I always get panic knifed, and yeah, it's frustrating. But on the other side of things, I do know some people that like the fact that they can easily knife someone if, well, you know, someone pops up out of nowhere in their face. And there's also some people out there that just like to go around knife only in these kind of games. So even though I'm gonna love this, other people might not. But I think a lot of my opinions about this game is based on the fact that I pretty much only play Call of Duty. Maybe some Grand Theft Auto here and there, but for the most part, I've been playing Call of Duty year after year, all year round. I think if any of you guys are the same way as I am, and you've only played Call of Duty mainly, you're probably gonna agree with a lot of things I'm gonna say. Now, something that I didn't like, though, is the vehicles added to the multiplayer maps. Well, some of them. I think it's great for the campaign. It lets us travel, like, really far distances pretty easily, instead of hiking everywhere. But for multiplayer, I think these are the type of things that are just way too powerful. I don't know exactly how many of the maps are going to have these vehicles in them, but out of the 2 maps that are available on the alpha, one of them had them. So, on that map, it was called First Light. It was the one that was on the moon. That map had 2 vehicles that were pretty much the determining factor on who won the game. The interceptor vehicle especially. I think it was OP as hell. It shot cannons and blast radius was huge. It pretty much one-shot kill anything that it hit. And the other vehicle, called a Pike, was pretty OP too, but just not as good as the interceptor. But as long as you don't run into one of those interceptors and you're on a Pike, you pretty much won that battle. It was super fast, juked out anyone on foot. Yeah, it was OP. These vehicles were just way too powerful. It kind of ruined the game for that map. Whichever team took advantage of the vehicles definitely won the game. It was just that huge of an advantage. But on the flip side, and this is just me being hopeful, but maybe there's going to be some way that they're going to balance it outside of the alpha, like when we're actually able to level up more and maybe get better equipment and stuff like that. And that just might be the case. We didn't really have much available to us in the alpha, so maybe there's going to be some stuff that we didn't get to see yet that's going to help balance it out. But that's just something that we can be hopeful about. And another thing that I thought they did a really good job on was personal customization. Not only did you get a choice between 3 different classes of fighters, the Hunter, the Warlock, and the Titan, but you can also customize their look. There's different races, different hairstyles, male and female, pretty much everything you can think of. Then there's one thing that I really didn't like, and I know this is going to be debatable. It's something that's always debatable in the gaming world. Now, Destiny is going to run only at 30 frames per second. It's 1080p, which is good, but it's 30 frames per second. And I would have liked it to be 60. So, the question is that going to bother you at all? Of course, 60 frames per second would look more smooth, and in general, just flat out, it looks a lot better. But typically, it does come with a price. Sometimes that means the game's going to have less features, or that you're going to have to sacrifice the picture quality in order to get those extra frames. More often than not, it means the resolution won't be at a true 1080p due to whatever hardware restrictions it has, even on the brand new next-gen consoles. And I know I've talked about this before, specifically about Watch Dogs, but the way I see it, 30 frames per second on a game like Watch Dogs really isn't exactly the end of the world for most people. I mean, for the most part, especially for console players, they're pretty used to playing their games at 30 frames per second anyways, so it's really not a big deal to them. But for some of us that are accustomed to 60 frames per second, like me for example, I pretty much only play Call of Duty, and all their games have always been 60 frames per second, I really think that in first-person shooters, there's a huge difference between 30 and 60 FPS. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. I do know that both Halo and Borderlands were both 30 FPS, and I don't think people really seemed to care back then. But the key word is back then. Those are both on old consoles. I think with these new next-gen consoles, people are actually expecting something equal to like 1080p, 60 frames per second across the board for every game. That's what I assumed when I saw, oh, next-gen's coming up. I mean, next-gen's got to be better than the last-gen, right? And that's definitely what I was assuming. And now, lately, I just tend to get disappointed every single time I see one of these hot new games come out, and it's not even running at what I thought was going to be the industry standard for a console that we're supposed to play for the next 7 years. You know what I mean? It just doesn't sound like it's next-gen if it can't handle 1080p 60 frames per second. That's just my thoughts. And I've said it before, I don't want to bore you to death on that. But with Destiny running at 30 frames per second, I don't know, it did disappoint me. I think for first-person shooters, it's really noticeable when it's 30 frames per second. I noticed it within the first couple seconds, and to me it just felt weird the whole time I was playing it. Coming from Call of Duty at 60 frames per second, year after year, it just wasn't as smooth as I'm used to, I guess. And to be honest, I mean, the game looks beautiful. It's 1080p, and it looks stunning. Like, the graphics are amazing. But I think I could have dealt with an upscaled 720p if it meant that I'd be able to get that 60 frames per second. I don't know if that was possible, or if that's even an option later on down the road. Just for me, that would have been my preference. But since that's probably not going to happen, I'm just hoping it's going to come out on PC too, which they haven't even announced anything on that. But there is something that did happen recently that gave us a little bit of a glimmer of hope. Someone did find it listed on the Steam database with a March 2015 release date. And I know that doesn't really mean anything at all right now. It could just be a placeholder or something. But it does give us a little glimmer of hope, right? But hey, looking at these next-gen consoles, it's just hard not to be a little disappointed. Man, I can't believe I don't even have my PC built yet, and I already sound like one of those Master Race PC players. But don't get me wrong, the game does look absolutely beautiful. The graphics are amazing, some of the best I've ever seen. It's just me being picky that I want the frame rate to be a little bit better. But anyways, guys, let me know in the comments what you think about what we saw so far, and whether the frame rate's going to be a big deal to you or not. And I'll let the gameplay run for those of you that might want to finish watching it. But before you go, don't forget to leave a rating, because that always does help me out. And I'll see you next time. Peace.
Zone A neutralized. Zone A secure. Zone B lost. Enemy captured Zone B. Zone C neutralized. You neutralized Zone B. Zone A lost. You captured Zone B. Enemy captured Zone C. Enemy captured Zone A. You neutralized Zone A. Zone A's captured. It's yours. Zone C neutralized. Zone B lost. Enemy captured Zone B. Zone C secure. Zone A lost. Enemy captured Zone A. You neutralized Zone B. You captured Zone B. You're in the lead. Zone B lost. Zone A neutralized. Enemy captured Zone B. Zone A secure. Zone C lost. Enemy captured Zone C. Zone B neutralized. Heavy ammo inbound. Zone C neutralized. Zone B secure. Heavy ammo available. Enemy captured Zone C. Zone A lost. One minute. Zone A secure. "30 seconds and counting." Zone A lost. "10 seconds remaining. Enemy captured Zone A." More efforts like that, and we might just win this.